Welcome to the Microsoft Security Insights Podcast with your hosts, Franklin Grimberg and Edward Walton, where we discuss Microsoft 365 security and Azure security news and products. Recorded August 3rd, 2022. Good afternoon/evening, Franklin. Good afternoon/evening, Brody. Good afternoon/evening, Rod Trent. How are you doing?
I'm good. I saw you didn't take the wrong turn this time, so that was good.
It didn't matter, my slow ass. It was my first half marathon since last September. Nowhere nearly in the same conditioning and race shape. I think you guys knew I had knee surgery. Mid or early year, and then I just haven't been training. So this race was on the books. It was a gut check, right, to make sure I'm ready for my big race here in October. But I wasn't sure I could run 13 miles. My longest run I've had in 2022 is 6 miles. So I went out there, and for those who haven't been to Colorado in an athletic capacity, the altitude is humbling. You know, I had to take some oxygen on the course. People were falling left and right on the course, mostly visitors. The Coloradans, is that the appropriate term for people who live in Colorado? They were laughing. And so luckily I went up there 2 days before, had a couple of shakeout runs in altitude. It was okay. We raced about, the start of the race was 7,000 feet above sea level, peaked at 8,000 after a 4-mile climb. They warned us from mile 2 to 6, it's uphill. And so that was, but it was all right. My team took fastest team in the 5K overall, fastest team in the half marathon.
Congrats.
I ran,
That's awesome.
I took fifth in my age group, for those who wonder how old I am, 50 to 55. And then I took 100.
That's it?
100. Yeah, that's it. And I took 107 overall. But you know my ego is, I got that competitive spirit like Rod Trent. Like, so I get online to see who beat me. And I felt a little bit better. 80% of the people that finished in front of me were from Colorado. So, you know, you can see where they registered and see where they're from and everything. And there was a team that came from North Carolina. You know, we won. We had fast. Yeah, and I'm from Atlanta, but they ran phenomenally.
So you were in Denver, or near Denver, north of Denver, right?
2 hours northwest of Denver at Estes, Colorado, at Estes National Park.
How are those North Carolina folks doing that well in that altitude?
I talked to one of the guys because he runs with one of the guys on my team that's out of North Carolina. They did a lot of training in New Mexico. I didn't know that New Mexico had elevation or something, and a couple other places. So they weren't really affected by it. And besides, those guys that did, they were sub-elite. I was nowhere in their class, right? So when you line up, you have your waves. So I joined the 1 hour to 2 hour wave. They were in the elite wave. You line up here if you racing for cash. So they buffered them off, put them up front, bam, and then they started us off. But you know what? I'm happy. I wasn't sure I could run 13 miles. I was like, my leg's going to fall off. My transmission is going to start slipping. My carburetor is going to flood. I'm not going to be able to start back up because I'm old. But I did all right. So you know what? I'm back to training, man.
That's good.
Everything's good.
Little ego boost.
Little ego
boost.
Not that you needed it, but that's good.
Hey, man. You know, my ego boost is no matter how much I train, I can't beat Rod. You know, I wish Rod would come out in races. I'd like to showcase him his time, but Rod, he won't come out.
Yeah,
for those
got cut.
For our listeners that don't know, Rod is an absolutely beast marathoner. You do not want part of that.
Well, it's my competitive spirit. I will kill you to cross the finish line before you.
Yeah. it ain't that crucial. That's personal.
Wasn't it that like bicycle thing where the one bicycle guy crashed and then the other guy waited up for him? Did you
That's
see that
not me.
video? Yeah, I don't see you or Edward being that way.
Oh,
No.
Franklin, come on, you're not being charitable.
Just
I
drive
went
by.
back.
Sorry about that.
I went back on the course twice to get a couple of my guys. I stopped, looked for them. They weren't there. I wasn't sure they were making a climb. I ran
But
back down.
if it was Rod, what would you do?
Well, first of all,
you just push him down again, wouldn't you?
First of all, I'd be
First-
so far ahead there. Being,
there you go. First of all, Rob is so far ahead. But Rob would be like, "How'd you beat me, Ed?" I'm like, "Uber, baby. You got Uber to pick me up and drop me off."
it's like that Bugs Bunny cartoon where Bugs and the turtle,
Yeah.
all those shenanigans. It actually started at the finish line.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. This was better than the one we did last year in Knoxville, which I ran very well. At least they didn't drive us down to the start. So you started flat, turned, they warned everybody at mile 2. You probably want to use the bathroom because they didn't put any porta potties between 2 and 6, which is odd for a big race like that. You don't want porta potties every 2 miles or something.
So, yeah.
Yeah, but it was, people were laying out. You know, I ran back. People were sitting on the curb like this and that. And I'm like, yeah. And you get these little oxygen things that you can buy. You know, so I'm sitting here like I'm having an inhalant, breathe I collapsed the can almost. And the dizziness, and the yeah, there you go. And the dizziness went away. So you know what? I'm happy. I'm back in the training mode. I got a picture of Rod training in my gym. I see the back of his head running. I'm chasing him like, you know. But you're right, Frank.
It would actually be a speck on that poster, by the way.
Now we get in front of each other. Now you underestimate my competitive spirit. Whatever it takes, HGH, steroids, testosterone, whatever Lance Armstrong was using, blood, whatever it takes, whatever it takes. Red Cup security.
Tanya Harding.
Listen. Yeah.
A show update, by the way. We are now, other than the reactor shows, we're now actually streaming on YouTube, Twitch, and Rod Trent's Twitter.
We're global, baby. We're
update.
Global. We're on the internet.
On the work side, some very hard things I'm working with, but I'm learning. And shout out to Must Learn KQL. I did it just to get a cup and something else, but it was such a great reference when I'm doing, and now I can recognize when other KQL stuff is crap, right? I've been trying to help a customer with some ZPA logs coming in, Zscaler private access logs. The Cisco Firepower is garbage. Nobody's updated the repo in months or even years, and the EPO for Sentinel. Rod, you and I talked about this.
We did.
The system is broken, whereas we are expecting people to give feedback about, in particular, data connectors in a Git/open community source thing. And when people initially write it, nobody's updating it, and the customers who are finding that it is broken are not hitting issue or submission. And I put a spreadsheet together. The average age of all the data connectors from the time they were created to the time that they were updated. This is abysmal. 4.73 months. Nobody's updating it. And so now you leave it up to the customer. So the customer goes, well, this is stupid. But it's not us. It is being contributed to. And then when a customer calls Cisco say, you need to call Microsoft. And Microsoft calls it, that's a Cisco Firepower issue, right? But I'm learning that ZPA parser that you and I looked over, Rod, you're right, it's garbage. It should be half the size.
Well, it's kind of early days. Plus, you have to consider we're kind of in a transition period from data connectors to solutions and all that good kind of stuff. But I agree. There's not very many organizations that are really keen to this crowdsourced support thing, right? Which is what GitHub is. If you have an issue with something, you go out and you create the issue, and then hopefully somebody looks at it. But not enough issues are being created because most folks are used to, hey, I have a Microsoft rep. I'm going to go talk to this person and tell them to fix this for me. And that's the escalation.
And to be very transparent, I knew nothing about. I knew what Git was because I had a buddy that worked at GitLab, so I knew what GitHub was. I didn't touch anything with Git until I started supporting Sentinel. I knew, I had more exposure to Azure DevOps than I had with Git because when we were doing the Fish Hunter product, we put all of our CI/CD in Azure DevOps rather than Git. So I knew nothing about Git.
Yeah.
And I think that we have an unreal assumption that customers do have it, and an even more unreal assumption that they want to learn it. I wouldn't have downloaded Git for Dummies just to go through it and see. I'm like, okay, I get it, but I don't want to bash overly because some people who are very pushback will say, "Well, Ed, won't you contribute something?" Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
I'm good. And the solutions don't get me started on that.
It's fair chirp.
So, yeah.
What is this threat intelligence announcement that happened this week?
Massive.
Well, so I think that's the best announcement we've had this week. Oh, wait, of course, other folks could argue with me. However, this has kind of been on the radar for quite a while, and now it's finally released. Microsoft, consider that the number of customers we have that use all of our products, Office 365 is one great example. There's trillions of signals that get generated every single day. We at Microsoft, I believe we probably have the best threat intelligence, or at least access to the best threat intelligence there is probably in the security industry, besides maybe something like RiskIQ and acquisition and stuff like that. But we have that is constantly and consistently fed back into the system. What we've done with threat intelligence is providing access to our other systems and customers so that they can take advantage of those trillions of signals that we maintain, so they can take advantage of those themselves. What is it? ti.defender.microsoft.com is supposed to be the ultimate location for that. It's not quite available yet, but
how do people take advantage of it? Can you run queries against it when you're in Sentinel? I mean, how do you take advantage of it?
We have in Sentinel, we have one analytics rule. It's Microsoft Threat Intelligence. It's in preview. All you need to do is enable that. When it's been out for a while, but it was specifically designed to look at very specific logs, but we've kind of opened that up now to this Microsoft Threat Intelligence database that we own and maintain. So just enabling that analytics role for Sentinel is going to give you access to that stuff. And it's going to
I saw it, didn't read it. I hear all the words, but what if I'm not a Microsoft customer? What can I get access to it as a Splunk consumer?
Yes.
Okay, yep. or some other FireEye, CrowdStrike. So there is a open
CrowdStrike. I don't know, but no, I'm just kidding. Yes.
Okay, so that is big news. My question is this: if you get access to trading your systems, are you going to choke somebody ingestion of your TI because they can't handle trillions of signals?
Those signals that we collect, they're analyzed. So what you actually get in that database is true signal. So it's not trillions and trillions. It's not everything duplicated where you have to kind of sift through it yourself like all of those other TI providers. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very actionable, real data. So it's not some big massive.
So we're gonna have somebody on the show to show us this, right?
We will. With some caveat. It's early days. We may not get someone to talk about this for probably about a month or so. Black Hat is next week. There's going to be some more information about this revealed next week. There's going to be a kind of an official launch in a couple weeks, right? So it's kind of early days for this.
The bad part about that is that let me tell you how security is, and I want to see what Brody's been doing all week. Since Brody now has to cover Sentinel.
Which I'm very excited about. Go ahead.
Let me tell you something about being a defensive security practitioner or blue team / purple team or anybody that's trying to protect. It sucks.
Whose keyboard is that? Whose typing?
It sucks. Tell me if you guys can agree with me. We got all this signal. We got all this stuff. We got all our tools. You can buy it.
Yeah.
But so can the bad guys. If you're playing football, you're giving your offensive playbook to the defense, right? And so now, what's to stop bad guys from subscribing it to the threat intel to see, they got me on here as APT. They got the wrong,
I mean, that's been a problem with like Virus Total because
Yeah.
Yes.
you don't want to submit something and then let everybody else know that it's been found. You don't want the bad actors know that you're on.
We will
you're onto
find it.
them.
We will find you.
That sort of thing. Plus, they're just going to blast they know once those IOCs are spent, they're spent. So I don't know how much they care. I think it's more along the lines of the tactics and techniques than the actual IOCs.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's inside the threat intel for that.
Well, it raises the cost for lower funded and resource constrained actors as well. So high-end APTs, they're going to pivot and adjust, but the broader spray and pray offensive aspects get covered off. So it's an ongoing cat and mouse game for sure. There's never a perfect solution, but we do have to provide customers with some sort of intelligence capabilities, right, in order to make those decisions.
Well, detection is not prevention either. You still need to implement zero trust. Everybody's an adversary until they prove themselves otherwise, right? By deed, not by words. So, but no, that is a good work. I'm learning a bunch of stuff. I've been more in Linux than I have in the last month and a half, 2 months, and I've been in the last 3 years. I'm here. I'm a big boy. I'm here modifying the 6-log conf file, all the other default conf file. I'm playing with it. I'm like, oh, okay, doing some Python stuff. Then I'm like, I can't do this. This is hard. I need an easy point and click. Come back, Microsoft. I just need the point and click. Click, 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 click. Brody, what have you been working on, man?
I've been working on a UI for Linux just for you. No, I'm just kidding, but I hear you. I have. It's been a great week. It's been a great week because of a reorg at Microsoft. My capability of Microsoft Security Solutions gets to expand in my consulting capacity. So, as you alluded to, I'm working with a customer on tuning and improving their current Sentinel deployment. So that's awesome. I'm really excited about that. Working on some Defender for Endpoint, working on a little bit of insider risk management, and we're doing a lot of great work on the internal America's Time Zone security community. And
I saw an announcement come out about that.
Yeah, there's just tons of. I'm really happy. It's been a little slow, especially after the FY cutover, and I'm really liking all of these opportunities ahead of us. And I'm more specialized in Canada moving forward now, which I'm excited about. I get to work with more Canadian customers and people who put up their hands on Teams calls instead of just interrupting everybody else because we're far.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, just like that.
Weird. Yeah.
So when you're doing this optimization, can you keep like a list of things that weren't obvious or lessons learned and share them on the podcast?
Yeah, I might be able to anonymize that. It's things like, hey, by the way, Frank, a lot of my asks are creating watch lists and improving watch lists. And every time I hear the word watch list, I think of you. And I don't get why you don't like them yet. But now that I'm working in that area more, I'll
all right, let me set this straight. Okay.
Oh, good. Please. Yes, please. Go ahead.
When watch lists first came out, you could not modify them.
Okay, so you couldn't import another CSV. It was just set in stone.
You'd have to delete it and import it again.
Oh, okay. I get why that would be a pain. Yeah. Okay.
So I just found that reading stuff from storage with the external data keyword would actually work, because then I could just go and update those files and I'm on my way, instead of the manual labor involved of maintaining watch lists with Inside Sentinel when it first came out. So that's how I get asked this question all the time. So what do you have against watch lists? It was just you could not maintain them when they first came out inside Sentinel. So that's why I called it at that point the most useless feature with Inside Sentinel. So,
well, it's
thank you.
You could. I don't delve in it a whole lot. My customers are. I don't know if it's because lack of sophistication or need. I've had very little inquiries about helping them out with watch lists, but you can do something bootleg that without Sentinel, because there's some HVT and HVA capabilities in M365 where you can designate high value targets, high value assets and there I saw a couple of blogs, and you can do it in MDO. You can actually do it in MDE. So you
And
can
MDI.
do and MDI. You surely can. MDI's made some great improvements.
Oh, wow, the things that have come out recently on MDI or are coming out. Yeah, I know we got to get to Richard at one point, but like
Yeah.
that's a good initial talking point next Wednesday, because there was a lot of things that recently were announced. Yeah, sorry. Evan.
Yeah, no problems. Franklin, I would ask what you've done, but do you do anything? I mean,
I don't want to talk about. I've been dealing with Azure IoT stuff, so that's fine.
Really?
Oh.
Okay. All right. I if you need some fillets or you need some Raspberry Pis, man, I got a stack of them.
Oh, good.
If
Just
you
need
one,
another
let me know.
credit. Just need a credit card for Azure Defender for IoT.
No.
I'm
Last
sorry.
time you did that, you got a $50,000 bill. Did you ever get your refund?
I actually did fight them on it, and I got and Amex gave me back my money on it. So
Okay.
because I had an entire case listing chat with Microsoft asking them, how do I stop the billing? And they're like, yeah, everything's fine. You're not going to get billed. Boom, get billed again, right? So I sent that chat into to Amex. They said, well, obviously, you've done everything you possibly could. Microsoft said you weren't going to get billed, and you got billed. So then they're like, you want us to cut off all of the charges for Microsoft? I'm like, no, just these. They're taking an on-premise service and they're trying to bill it through the cloud, and there's just some misses going on, and they'll correct it. But I don't need to pay for that correction. So hopefully it's all better now in the way that they're doing it.
Well, the average Joe like me and Richard and Brody and Rod couldn't survive that. I mean, we don't have an MX Black card, so, if I had an MX Black card, I'm like, yeah, that's $100,000 bill. This may no big deal, right? All right. Well, it sounds like everybody's been doing some stuff. It is slow at Microsoft. Account teams are griping again. I'm actually in a really good learning period because you can focus. You're not back to back to back to back because it's slow. So now able to go in and really look at a few things. Rod, you and I said something. I don't know if we can say it on the show. We were talking about the origins of Azure Sentinel. Remember what you told me?
Microsoft Security Insights. And it was an
Yes.
acquisition. Yeah.
I'm doing the research. I did not. How many of you guys knew that? How many of you guys knew that Azure Sentinel was an acquisition? I thought it was home built.
I think I did too. I also think it was home built.
So not that I doubted Rod. I started doing my own research.
I'll never doubt Rod.
Yeah. And eventually, once again, he's right.
I'm the Cliff Clavin of the security room.
Dude, it was so low profile, you did not know it was an acquisition. They framed the narrative on that big time as though it was homegrown and home built. Now, Azure Monitor and Log Analytics was there. We're talking about the intelligence piece, which is Sentinel, which used to be called Azure Security Insights. And Rod, I'm gonna have a trivia question for you next week once I can get some clarification that this is true. There was a name of it before it was Azure Security Insights. Sure there was. So but before I get on the show and everybody gets on Discord, Ed doesn't know his ass from a hole in the ground. That's not true. So I want to make sure I get it right. But hey, we have an outstanding guest. I've got to work with this gentleman on and off, either directly or as part of his team. Everybody on his team over at Microsoft are outstanding. I know you saw the shift. He saw the shift positions. He can give us clarity if he's still working with some of the people I know. I know Katie moved on. You got Tiffany over there. Madonna is literally on the other side of the planet. If you drill through the ground, so she's over there. But Mr. Richard Diver, I can tell you he's a good guy because when I first met him, I kept calling him Richard Driver because and he entertained me, right?
Calls me that. That's fine.
Yeah, and I said, oh, it's Diver. There you go. Okay, so but hey, I wouldn't do justice to an introduction of him, other than he helped me with that spreadsheet you sent me. Take 6 months of work. I got it down to 2 weeks. That was that, and then that connection you gave me, she's really helping me out. So I had a year-long project. I'm going to finish in 3 months. because of
We
that,
should,
of
we
everything.
should, we should also mention that Richard was or is the author of the very first Microsoft Sentinel book ever, along with Gary, who was on here a couple weeks ago, but he's also the author of the most recent one as well.
Really? I knew about the old one. I knew about the new one. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, so I get it. I get it. I'll
Gary,
put,
and he's in the chat window as well, saying hi. So.
Yeah,
He is.
Gary's in chat.
Well,
Shout out Gary, friend
he
of the
was
show.
hoping to hear his name, I think. That's why he's here.
Yeah.
oh,
There
okay.
you go. We did it.
Well, I'm going to let him get at it, but first of all, I want to give big shout outs to Frank and Rod about switching our platform. When I tell you this is so smooth, I got every feed coming on. It's almost synchronized. Almost every one of them, right? So that's all right. We'll keep you guys, Brody and I keep you guys on another month. 'Cause, you know, we keep the pink slips ready.
Yeah.
We keep them ready, you know. So Richard, please introduce yourself. Talk about what you do, where you work, you know, what excites you about the work that you do, and maybe a cool tip now and then. We're pretty unstructured. So without further ado, Mr. Richard Diver.
Hey, thank you very much. Yeah, so Richard Diver, I am now currently Senior Manager Story Design. I work in marketing. So I moved away from kind of consulting and partners and all the things I was doing, and I'm now one of the most technical people in marketing, which is fun. I'll tell you all about that as we go. Like you, have been through an education journey recently. So going back a few years, I've got 27 years in the industry. I'm feeling as old as Eddie at the minute, not quite there yet. I've lived in the UK, Australia, now America, and I joined Microsoft a few years ago to help partners learn Sentinel. After Gary and I wrote the book, I decided to join Microsoft and go teach more people around the world. I think I helped 150 companies learn how to build their MSSP using Sentinel. So lots of them are out there now protecting customers and making a lot of money out of that thing, which is really nice to see.
I'm very close to that because, you know, at Microsoft, I used to be on the OCP side. So, you know, we were part of the whole trifecta program. We were getting partners technical chops up to be able to take the services and, you know, not only get skill. One of my measures was helping the customer understand how to monetize and turn into services, recurring monthly revenue, MRR, right? It was a slow roll, but now it looks like partners are doing it. I got to sit down with 4 partners about a month ago. They're outstanding. Big shout out to Blue Voyant / Managed Sentinel. Big shout out to Probidia. Big shout out to Ascent, and big shout out to Open Systems. So those are the partners that came present. They're pretty solid. Yeah.
I like for you to know that Gary has joined us to keep Richard honest.
Yeah,
Hi, Gary. Say hi, Gary.
Gray is a friend of the show, previous guest. Thanks for coming back on. I didn't know he was popping in. So Richard, now that you're in marketing, what are you working on now?
Yeah, don't hold it against me, right? So because I got a background of, I've done everything from Active Directory in the year 2000. In 99, I kind of got into my IT career, and then Active Directory, and then I got into Azure Active Directory around the 2010 stage when I was telling people, don't go to the cloud, you're not ready for it yet. So now, fast forward 20 something years, I'm like, I've got a pretty good breadth across everything security and compliance. What I found is like tip number 1 for people in their career as they grow up in their career, like I've just kind of found my way through it somehow, is learn how to do diagrams. And I found over time that I'm pretty good at teaching people stuff. That's what my last role was to teach partners whatever Microsoft purchased, like Defender for IoT from CyberX, and then Risk IQ and Cloud Knox, and a whole bunch of other ones. I would pick it up, learn it, teach other people it, and then go on to the next thing. So this role came around. It's the first time this role's been available, so I'll take it. I like the title, Story Design, right? So I get to now go and research stuff, learn about it, and then hopefully teach a lot of people in the world about what it is Microsoft.
Yeah, I get what you're talking about. You know, learn how to design and create diagrams, but everybody can be Mark Simons. Shout out to Mark Simons. Come on.
Mark. We'll put a link to his stuff. So he was a big influence on my approach to diagrams. And before I got into marketing, when I was on the technical side, I would take Mark's diagrams and go down a couple of levels. That's what I do with Sentinel, is use his diagrams and go, okay, that's the higher level view, and it's pretty detailed. But I'd go further down into some of the details, not as far as Gary and Frank and Rod can go, I'm not that technical, even though I wrote a book. It doesn't mean
Me either.
technical, right? But what I don't do is I go the other way around. I try to take the stuff and go slightly higher to people that don't know security or they don't know everything Microsoft has. There's not that many people in the world that know everything we do. So I'm trying to raise the story up slightly and make it easier to understand.
Thank
So-
you for doing that. There's the range of knowledge across the board is extensive, right? And so if we have good storytellers and people who can educate to a wide variety of audiences, that's just going to enable everyone to make better decisions moving forward.
That's it.
Thank
It's
you.
just giving people the power to go make smart decisions. That's all we got to do.
Yeah. You have to have a talent for it. You know, you, Mark, Gary, Gene. Certain people can just take a concept and visualize it, right? I'm trying to do that, but I'm trying to do it via, taking KQL and using workbooks to try to, convey, data. It's not. I took the lesser of two evils. It will either be the team lead for notebooks or workbooks. I do workbooks. I don't want to do it. I'll send all that stuff over to Gary and on the show. Gary, hey, you want to say something? I mean, if you're in the show, you can say something.
I was saying everything on chat, but
Oh, okay.
Hey, Gary.
for those who don't know, the reason I'm in Sentinel is because of Richard.
Really?
Yes.
So
Back in a
Richard's-
different company, I was doing an Azure Architect, and he came into our group, did a presentation on Sentinel, and asked if anybody wanted to help. I figured it'd just be a couple days, and here I am now.
Yeah.
I think you said that when you came on the show. So I sort of remember you sort of saying that already. So Richard, what does a storyteller do?
Yeah, I'm still making that up as we go along. So the latest example is Azure Foundational Security. So nothing you buy from Microsoft, just what do we give and do to make Azure and Microsoft secure by default. That's my main aim right now. I'm sure it'll expand in scope. To do that, I had to go into our SDL story. So like you were learning about KQL from scratch and learning about Linux, I had to learn about DevOps. And you said you'd never used GitHub before. I haven't written code other than like some basic PowerShell script. So I've had to go and learn for the last 3 months what is the secure development lifecycle story, and even go and look at competitors and alternative viewpoints around the developer lifecycle and go, what is that story? That plus what's everyone saying in the marketplace about what they offer and what they have and how to do it, and then go back and look at, all right, what does actually Microsoft do? What can you do out of the box? And we've got a really good story, but like a lot of stuff, a lot of it's hidden, and if you don't know, you don't know. So I'm trying to surface a lot of these. It's a little bit like if I think of like Pixar animation and stuff, it's like I've got all these individual characters, and I've got to try to make this story that makes sense, so that someone who's really technical can go and get it and understand it and follow along. So yeah, get 90% of what you're trying to say, enjoy the last 10%. And someone who has no idea about secure development lifecycle and why people keep getting hacked and why this stuff keeps happening, like Zero Trust, there is a method and a process you can follow that will reduce you down to 99% chance. Take all those problems out of the way. You still got an issue of security, but it's not as bad as the gaping hole that we had beforehand. So,
Are you? I know your process because your process focus of a sort, because you're looking at how to do CI/CD, Azure DevOps, whatever it may be.
yeah.
Are you focused on a particular product within the Microsoft security stack, whether it be Azure, M365, or whatever?
I have to do all of it. So I'm not doing any one product. So as much as I'm broad, I'm not doing any one product, but I have to go learn all the products that I don't know, like DevOps and GitHub Enterprise Security and all the different things, to work out where they fit in the story. That's why story design, to understand where they fit. And then when I position it, to put it up on, put it up on a big stage somewhere, or make a video about it, whatever we end up doing with it eventually is like underneath the covers, there's a serious story about every component. There's a backstory behind each character, and you've got all the development done. So when you tell the big story, like, hey, we're really good at developer security, there's something to go and point people to and say, this is where the detail is. Yeah, it's a lot more exciting than I thought it would be when I took on the role. I was like, yeah, sounds great, let's go do it. And now I've done it for 3 months. It's like, nah, this is
so help me create a visual picture of, and whoever put my picture in, Brody, in Discord. Yeah. Help me understand your role and how you get to impact the customer. Is it I do this and I get to here and I get to here, and then the customer goes, oh, I get it. Is your title synonymous with evangelist? Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's
Storyteller?
not far off. I'm working with the evangelists, like in the developer community. So there is a new team being spun up in that space because again, we've got to do a better story of telling how good some of our kit is and some of our approaches. So if you may know of a guy. Oh, I'm so terrible with names. I'll come back to it.
Mm.
I'm such bad with names when I have to try to remember off the top of your head. But there is a fantastic team being built around DevOps, and they are the evangelists. They'll be the ones that actually are in front of customers and working with customers. I'll be feeding them some of those stories. They'll take it much deeper than I can go, but they'll at least understand the all-up narrative. So when they pull on a thread, like you might just go talk Sentinel, but somebody else will talk DevOps. I have to explain what Sentinel and DevOps does together to make it more of a secure lifecycle.
So you answered my next question, like the secure DevOps is in relation to whatever our product, and so it's Sentinel, right? Because I don't think you can do secure DevOps to M365D, right? You know, whatever the Defender things are, because there's no secure DevOps or MDI or anything like that, right?
So that's the good challenge of this is how do you do DevOps properly? And there's no official terms and coins for it. But if you think of zero trust for DevOps, that's about the nearest I can get to. You want to have everything from the developer's workstation and everything they do on a day-to-day basis fully protected, so you can't attack the developer, the workstation, the code, the websites they go to get their code, because 90% of code is open source in most enterprises today. And so with 90% being open source, the whole lifecycle from the third-party supply chain, the open source software, and then the code the actual developer writes, put all that together into a package and then run it on a container or some kind of, doesn't matter which cloud you put it into, it could be any cloud, that entire thing needs securing. And so that's where it requires an ecosystem of security to track it end to end.
Richard, what are you finding that most folks are using for authentication for their applications and stuff through the DevOps pipeline? Is it? I don't know. I just kind of give you a little background.
Yeah.
My org has been tasked with trying to figure this out. So you and I could probably have some other things we could work on together.
Yeah.
Because most software developers hate to think that they could use Azure Active Directory for that authentication piece, which they absolutely should because it's a secure mechanism. But yeah, I'd be interested to know what you found, at least so far.
Yeah, so far, here's, I'll take a different approach on it. Here's what I'd like to be able to do is to be able to go and discover what they have used in the past and show that to them from a vulnerability perspective. Yeah. If you've been on Troy Hunt's Have I Been Pwned, that's pretty much every database we found so far that they didn't secure properly. So any developer using a homegrown or an older identity management system that says, hey, a database with user ID password pair, bad approach, right? It doesn't matter how well you try to secure it. If someone gets that database or gets access to it, all bets are off and you're in Have I Been Pwned, which is a fantastic website. So I think, if you then go to like, what can Azure AD do? There's that misconstruction, even inside Microsoft in our developer community. Not everybody understands what Azure Active Directory can do for the developers. And so they go, hey, you should go use, pick a brand like Okta, go use that.
Yep.
You don't have to use one brand in the entire world for this thing. There's 15 different choices. And depending on where your strategy is, you might not want to use another brand and another product that's completely separate to everything else you do. So
yeah, I can tell somebody could have used your insight and consulting about 2 years ago. They shout out to SolarWinds, and FireEye saving their butt, right? Or saving our butt. I think a lot of people don't give FireEye enough credit for saying, because they were going to fall on the sword. They thought it was them, and then they kept looking like, what is this? So I know the business has shot up because of them being able to do that. For those who don't remember the SolarWinds hack and everything, FireEye thought it was them first, and they went back and looked at the code and realized it was a CI/CD compromised supply chain or development chain.
Yeah, and the one catch from that, and this is why you have to have a really strong, diverse signal path and something like Sentinel, is somebody tried to register an MFA device, and that was the trigger. If they hadn't tried it, if the attacker hadn't tried to register that MFA device, which went kind of against policy of having 2 MFA devices instead of 1. Mm-hmm. How much longer would it have been before we found out about it?
And it took somebody to see that signal and not brush it aside and be like, oh, maybe they got another device or whatever. A human really had to like dig into that. That's
No,
a very
all the
important
effort they
point,
put in,
Richard.
and one slip up, ensure that person's not getting their bonus.
So whoever Reed Racer 60 is, I just became a fan. You're right. Make love, not federation. I've never been a fan of that. Federation is
Yeah.
whatever, even if it's open ADFS, I'm like B2C, yeah, no. You keep yours over there, keep mine over here. We'll have a DMZ that we talk to each other, so I'm just old school. You can tell I'm old and crotchety. There you go. So when you're in your capacity, how do you find the ideas? How do you define your job? How do you know what to do? It is so broad, and that's one of my weaknesses. If you give me too much information, I'm like a bunny rabbit that gets startled. You just stay still. How do you move?
In this role, that's been one of my challenges as well. To be honest, this is why I pulled Gary in to help write the book, because I knew that there's no way I'd concentrate long enough to write an entire book on my own. Plus, Gary's way more technical than I am from the developer and code perspective. So like collaborate with somebody else, bounce ideas off each other, and get it down to what's the minimum things we have to do. So in this role, yeah, I go everywhere. Like I was like, we should cover all of our Dart team, Mystic, the digital crimes unit, like our physical data centers. And if you think of security at Microsoft, there is 500 different things we should talk about. And it's like, well, what matters today? And so we've got it down to about 4 things. One is our identity play, huge. Another one is developer lifecycle, the whole secure everything from, so you've heard of Log4j? Do you hear that one? Yeah, so when Log4j landed, it was like, okay, have I got Log4j? And that was the first thing, like, have I got one of them? I don't know. And you have to run around finding it. So then if you don't know you've even got it, you don't know you got the problem, and then it takes months to even find that out. So that's a huge one. Our teams at Microsoft, you'll hear about the 40 trillion signals, the 8,500 people, the $4 billion in research every year. That actually means something. Like when you go up against any other security company in the world, the people we have inside this company, way bigger than anything else, more than our products, I would say. So those are 3 of the 4 things, and the 4th one is Azure itself, and then the things we do with Azure to make it secure, because it supports pretty much everything else, like Office and Xbox and everything we do. So yeah, I got 4 things to focus on right now. Once I get those right, then we can spread back out and do more.
So
do we answer questions in the chat window, or do we go to them later? Because some really nice questions.
We're getting used to it now that we have so much exposure. Brody's in Discord. I can see I'm on the YouTube piece. I got Twitch over here. So if we're looking away, Gary and Richard, we're not being rude. We got
here's a question, by the way.
Yeah.
Here's a good question, I think.
Yeah, so if we're doing this as part of the project, is there any for a personal team, SC2? Yeah, so skills and mix. There's always that problem about being the, was it jack of all trades, master of none? And that's not a bad thing. I think you said it in the previous couple of chats, you're talking about career development and having a skill set, and like, I'm an exchange administrator and I'm going to die an exchange administrator. It's like, well, they've gone now. There aren't many of them left. Move on to the next thing. So I think it's best to do SC200 is a really good one. SC900 is where you start to learn salesy stuff. SC500, AZ500, those are really the core ones that most people should learn. And then SC200 is the security ones. Start heading into some specialist areas. But if you're not doing Sentinel on a day-to-day basis, and you're not doing threat hunting as a red team or blue team on a day-to-day basis, you probably don't need to go and learn about that stuff too deep. Like, you can learn a little bit about and understand it to communicate with those people and understand the challenges they have and understand what to give them to help them out. But otherwise, I find it's better to stick to the fundamentals, like how do I secure identity? And not enough people know identity, right? I've been an Active Directory person for 22 years now, and people still don't get identity as well as they need to do. Code, I'm learning, because like you found, Eddie, everyone's doing code now. Doesn't matter what you're running. If you're not doing some level of code, you're probably not in the cloud. And if you're not in the cloud, you're not doing security.
The way I know the way I know you is from interacting with you. Was Madonna your?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was really endeared to the partner side and seeing all the good work that you were doing. how does your job translate to enabling, educating, and making so-called security partners better?
Yeah, so that was the role I did for the last 2 years. Mandana has gone to another country now, which is cool. Really love Mandana as a manager. She's fantastic. And then so that's when I was like, okay, time to have a look around.
Mm-hmm.
So in that role, I would spend every day talking to different partners, running. So if I can give a link out to a YouTube channel, SPD videos, so aka.ms SPD videos, whole bunch of stuff of me and a whole bunch of smart people talking about Defender for IT and everything. That level got me, like I said, 150 companies I can train in one go. This role, I'm hoping, gets me access to kind of engineering, product groups, all of our field. Like I'm hoping I'm high enough up now that I get to have this circle of influence where I get to listen to the field and find out what are the challenges they're facing, like renewals are coming up, or we get hit by a security alert and someone says, why did this happen? And how did Microsoft let that happen? I'm there to help try to not defend and deflect and, sorry, we didn't do a good enough job. It's like understand the strategy of what are we doing about it to make sure it doesn't happen again, but also how do you communicate to the customer that, 0 days are going to happen. And it doesn't matter who you are, which company you are, you're going to get hit. And it's all like FireEye, like everybody else, you're going to get hit, and it's what you do about it that matters afterwards. And so that's hopefully the role. Yeah.
Yeah, on the topic of 0 day, that's such a overly used term by everybody in the industry. There's no 0 day. Nobody's gotten compromised the day of. I think the more important things are day 1 through day 3 when the word is out and you still haven't done anything. Log4j. So, there you go. But let me ask you this question also. When would your job be easier pre-pandemic or no pandemic at all? Because the way I envision your role is being on stage at Expire, being on your stage at Ignite, being on your stage at Tech Ready. How are you doing it now? Because we're on the chat and people are just zoomed out.
No, for those 2 years when I was helping partners out, this is my basement. So the first year I was in my bedroom, then I was in my dining room, and then my wife made my basement my office and now my gym. So I get to do all these things, which is cool. I'm actually getting more done like this, and I think if we're in person, because when you're in person, you're flying around everywhere, and you could only really, again, like go to an event where there was maybe hundreds of people or thousands of people. That's that one event for that 1 week. Whereas in this room, I've been able to reach a huge audience. I think recording videos, making things repeatable. But yeah, I'd love to get back to events and meet up with all of you on stage, and we go and do sessions together and really because I used to love going up and seeing like Mark Russinovich do his talk, and you understood everything he said until 2 minutes later, and you go, I have no idea what he said. But then go meet him after, shake his hand, and say thanks very much. So there's all this inspired us to get to where we're at. I'd love to help the next lot of technical experts growing up and growing their careers, and I'd love to go to work with them in the future.
It needs to be about.
Big shout out, Mark. Come on the show, Marinovich. He's a tall dude.
He is tall.
Dude, just tall, man. I got a picture with him, man. I it doesn't help that I'm 5'1". That dude's up here, man, and he has a wit about him.
Yeah,
he has a wit about him. You get him to talking, right? Loosen him up with a little bit of that brown liquor. Big shout out, Mark. Come on the show. And so, I'm going to pivot away from your current role and go back to your old role.
Yeah.
Right. This is where I know you from. If you had your pick, what would be a good makeup of a security partner that has potential that you can say, hey, this partner has these base things, and if they get into security, Microsoft as their primary platform of security products, what's a key partner makeup? What would you look at what they already have before they decide to go down the security road to become a good security partner? And that can be either just consulting, MSSP, or both.
Good question. One of the first things, because I was a partner for 10 years before taking the role on, I knew kind of what a partner did. So my first role.
Sorry to cut you off. Can you say where you were?
I was at a company called Insight, which is where I met Gary, and that's when we wrote the book.
Okay.
That's when.
That's good.
Yeah.
We bought printers from Insight, my old role.
Yeah, well, I was in Australia working for a smaller company that got bought out by Insight. I was like, who's Insight? What do they do? And I found out who they were. I was like, oh, do you want me to come to America? And they said, yes. So I landed here, and the story goes on. It's strange how just
Fun.
but so I knew what partners were. When I got to Microsoft, one of the things I found, even like in OCP, the one channel partner, is the idea of what is a partner is different depending on who you talk to. There's developer partners who make software that integrates Microsoft. There's consulting partners. There's a lot of them that sell the tech but don't do anything else. They just sell it. And then there's the partners that were actually deploying, like me and Gary were, and the ones that would actually train customers up on the tools. So my ideal partner for a security company would be one that would be able to do a little bit more than sell it, right? Because selling's okay if you don't make a lot of money in selling stuff. And I always think that you don't need to sell something. If someone understands what a thing does, then they're going to buy it. You don't have to try to sell someone. I never like carrying quotas and stuff because
I love that, Richard. Just explain it, right? Don't force it, right? It's like
a car. Do you need a car? Yeah. Are you going to buy a car? Whether it's a Ford, or a Mercedes, or a BMW, you choose which one you want. But you got to understand why you're buying that kind of car.
Thank you.
So the ideal partner, going back to your question, would be I had a couple of different partners. Some were Splunk, and they had security, and they had the people, and they were using, let's say, just older technologies. And the idea for them to come to Microsoft was, let's at least understand what you already know, add Microsoft to the stack. So we try to complement what you're already doing out in the field. So you're not trying to re-educate your entire field, because that's hard. Add Microsoft to it so that the customer base is now expanded. You've got all the customers you had. Now you gain all these Microsoft customers. And then over time, let's look at, of the tool sets you're going to your customers to use, how many of them could be more Microsoft than not, because that's better for the customer to have a consolidated platform. And then I'd get partners that would just go all in Microsoft. Like they would switch their business from selling 50 to 100 different platforms and products to 90% of our work is Microsoft. And we still do a bit on the side because there's some stuff that Microsoft doesn't do.
And I've seen partners like that become hugely successful, not because of our product. They reduce the mental roadmap of the selling portfolio for their salespeople. And the salespeople, instead of leaving when they get frustrated, it's like, okay, instead of having 100 products, you give me 25 products. Yep. That's manageable.
Well, because you're helping the customer not save money, but spend the money they have more wisely. That's a good sales way to go. Like, I know you've got X amount of budget, spend it here and you'll get these benefits. That's good sales. But the best partner is the one that doesn't just advise the customer through the sales cycle to help make smart decisions, not based on how much of their new kitchen gets paid by the outcome, right? Incentivize people the wrong way, they'll give you the wrong answers. And so then it's the ones that can actually help the customer deploy and train up the customer's people. Now, if the customer doesn't have people, because this is the big problem in the world today, is they don't have or they can't retain necessarily the skills they need. So grow them or have a partner do it for you. And generally what I find is partners do 50% of the work and the customer does the other 50% of the work, and it's a nice teamwork between partner and customer. But you should educate the customer to help them learn how to use the tools, so the partner does the stuff the customer can't or won't do, which is either 24/7 monitoring or the really technical stuff.
One of the challenges I had on the OCP side was getting partners to live up to what the title was. You got to have a partnership with the customer. They have to trust that you're going to be in the trenches with them. Their failure is your failure. Their success is your success. And a lot of partners fail because they were so transactional that they didn't really want to get into the advisorship piece. Because sometimes when a customer calls you, it's not always a billable evolution. They may just want to ask a question, right?
Right. Build that in. You know they're going to ask the question, so don't bill them for it and charge them every time. You can't answer your question until you pay me some money. That's not a nice way.
That's a bum way to go about stuff. Yeah,
exactly. The other one is you'll see that you'll get a 3-year contract. Everything happens in the first 6 months, and then they kind of coast for a while, and then it's like, oh, renewal's coming up, and you get a whole bunch of excited activity again. It's like you should. And this is one of the big shifts of Sentinel, to be honest, for a lot of partners, was how do I transact month by month when the customer can just pull the plug at any time and stop paying for it? You're not committed to years of software and hardware. Turn it on, use it, turn it off. Don't use it anymore. It's not that easy because you can't just turn off your SIM, but the customer's spend on a monthly basis could be up and down might grow over time. After a while, they might, divest half the company and it goes back down. So partners found it really hard to try to work out how to price that. And so their contract for support and services might be 1 or 2 or 3 years, like it always was, but the usage of Sentinel would be monthly. And so some partners took a different approach and went, look, based on what the customer does per month, I'll bill you based on a percentage of that, because that's how much effort I'll have to put in. Now, if you can reduce the effort, you can increase your profits. So.
Yeah, I said on the show, we had a few guests, I've said a few times, the way you build that relationship with a customer, if you call yourself a security partner, you got to have trust. You got to have, you have to have honesty. You have to have transparency about what you're doing, because if you get those 3 things in front of a customer, transparency, honesty, and trust, and a sense of partnership, they'll stay with you even if you screw up, right? Because they feel you're in the trenches with them, right? And they'll share their dirty laundry with you. That's what it is. Because a dishonest customer is the worst customer. Oh yeah, we're good. You don't have to worry about that. Is that right? So, I'm going to flip back over from the partner side, which I had a great time in. I love seeing concepts come to fruition and solutions, and people, do good things with it. I'm sort of not soft, but I'm sort of endeared to the SMB market. I don't believe any security vendor out there, including Microsoft, is really taking care of the SMB, SMC market the way they should. Right? I don't know what the fix is, but it's still, you're exacerbating the situation. SMBs have already told you we don't have the skill, time, money, education to do it, and no big partner and no big vendor have still addressed that problem. It's SMB is a one-off to them, right? And that is who's getting attacked outside of the one-off, big people, right?
Yeah. It's an interesting one that came up with Sentinel, because it never fit quite well as well into, because you're billing the customer for the use of Sentinel. You can't host it centrally and have 100 customers using one instance, so you can't get that scales of economy. So what's interesting there is trying to see how much can you use Sentinel, not for free, but minimally. And is Sentinel the right thing for SMB, or do they just stick with XDR and just use the 365 Defender as a stack?
Well,
they don't need it in,
That's two different discussion, paths right there. If I'm a partner, I don't care about anything other than free, right? So if I can keep the customer, SIM cost to a minimum, that allows them to spend their money in my consulting and monthly management services, and I may not need all that signal that's coming from your NetFlow and your chatty ass Checkpoint box. Get me started on Checkpoint. How are they still around?
Hey, they're a good partner of ours, too.
Yeah, can we go back and talk about SMB, because how much are SMB truly utilizing Azure resources that would be log and Sentinel that then could be correlated to what's coming out of Defender anyways? I mean, is M365 Defender enough for up to 50, desktops if they're not really utilizing Azure other than what they think it's Microsoft 365, active, they don't realize it's Azure Active Directory. I mean, where do you see hey, you really should be also considering Sentinel outside of having the people to actually be able to
and that's another nice thing. So in the book, I wrote the first couple of chapters, which is trying to just explain where it sits in the world. And I think what I was trying to say there is it's changes by lowering the barrier. I did not know SIN before Sentinel came out, and I picked it up and learned it, and then got Gary to come and join me. I'm like, let's learn this thing because it's new and people are going to love it. And then we had to convince the publisher, hey, you want to write a book about this because people are going to buy it. And in that, it was like, it lowers the barrier that it's almost easy enough for anybody that knows a little bit about security, a little bit about Microsoft, to go turn it on and start using it. It's not that easy at an enterprise scale because you have way more complicated stuff to do and noise and cost and everything else. But if you just use the basics of it, like feed me some signal, tell me I got one place to look at my alerts, and then when I click the alert and I finish and closed it, go close it in the other place it came from. At a basic level, even just the Microsoft stack, Sentinel is a great little add-on to the rest of the Microsoft stack. If you then have firewalls or you then have non-Microsoft stuff, right, you're going to need those logs coming in as well. Because like I said before, like fidelity of signal. If you don't seeing all the signals, you're not seeing all the problems. Even in the largest enterprises, you'll find a common conversation with a SIM expert is, when was the last time you looked at what logs you're ingesting? And they're like, no, I have a bucket and I filled the bucket up. And then when I run out, I go and ask for money and I get bigger buckets, right? And they just keep adding more in. So that when Sentinel came along, again, it changed the conversation to like, you're going to pay for this per day, per gigabyte. You need to know what's coming in and why you're getting value out of it. And so one of our first projects, me and Gary, was like a 125-person sporting company. And they were using some third-party company in another country that had some kind of SIM they were billing them for. So they're providing a nice service to this company. And the companies, SMBs aren't cheap. It's not they don't have money. They just don't have a lot of people. And so the total value isn't high, but a per-person cost arguably could be the same as an enterprise. It's just you need thousands of SMB customers to make up for one enterprise customer. But on a per customer basis or a per user basis, they'll still buy E5 if they need all those features, or they'll still buy maybe Business Premium because they need those features. And so you get a lot of what you need to build a strong security play. What the partners they need is that expertise to go, you have to do MFA. There's no point doing anything else if you're not doing MFA, and you're not doing MFA everywhere, and you're not blocking legacy auth. Like, those are the basic things a partner needs to help SMBs do, is make sure they're backing their stuff up. They're not doing email security badly. They're doing MFA. Like, if they just get 99% of the problems in the world gone, well, then they can bill them for the stuff that's like, what's that 1%? Because the 1% isn't rinse and repeat. It's really understanding the business and understanding where their specific security issues are going to be.
Posture and policy. That's all. Posture and policy. That's the important thing.
Yeah, that's a huge play this year, definitely.
So, hold a second, Eddie. I call you Eddie because you're Eddie the Monster there instead of Edward. So, should every single Azure admin learn KQL?
Azure, yeah, it's like learning PowerShell. If you don't know PowerShell, you don't know KQL. I'm not an admin anymore, so I can say this, but it used to be the days if you didn't know how to write a batch file or you didn't know how to do some automation. Like, the best admins are the lazy admins. Like, how can you do it quicker and easier? And so
Slackers. We're not lazy. We just want to find the most efficient way to accomplish the task in the least amount of time.
Exactly, to spend more time playing Xbox and watching TV. Yeah,
most efficient way to do nothing.
Yeah, that's it. It's like, don't repeat things. My first job back in, so I was in the Navy for 5 years, and then I had a medical discharge. And so I got into help desk, and I was like 24/7 or 12 hours a day on the help desk. And when I went down to the server team, the first job I had to do was go through event logs, and you'd look for the little red X's. And that was a daily task. You'd go through event logs and look at the X's, and what does this one mean? For hundreds of servers, like, this is bad. So after a while, you realize you can't do these things. You might have your checklist every day, but that's a really bad way of doing it. That stuff still exists today, but just on a different plane. There's still people doing or not doing manual checks and manual processes that should have been automated a long time ago.
Yeah. Thank you for your service. I'm ex-Navy myself. I don't know which Navy you served in.
UK, Royal Navy.
Oh, I did some spec ops with you guys.
Nice.
You can drink on your ship.
Yeah, and so can the females.
Yeah. These guys were bringing beer on my sub, and they're like, my CEO was like, you can't do that.
No, I was thinking about that, and that's one of the other things about why I love being in security, is it's very not like the military, but like the military. So in the military, it doesn't matter which military branch you're in or where in the world you're in, Canadians, Americans, British, when you get together in a port or on a base, you're still all military. And it's the same in the security community, I would say, is you're part of a community. So as much as you'll see competitors of Microsoft bashing each other and everyone's trying to sell their product, behind the scenes, some of our best partners are our potential competitors, but there are security partners that we couldn't live without. And so that's what I love about this role, is trying to find all those really good stories where we all help each other. So that's get out of sales and get out of worrying about who makes money. In security, we just worry about beating the bad guy, not trying to sell more than the next one.
Big shout out to Reed Racer 6. You're right. Anchors away. Acres away. You know what? You're right. I missed that aspect of the military when we did, multi-country, joint operations. you would exchange stuff. You know, you would give your warfare signature to someone. Someone would give you yours. You exchange ribbons and all that stuff. And I still got some people that you know, I won't say friends, but I still connect by virtue of this modern social media. Like, dude, remember when we did this thing together? We were in Corpus Christi. I met the British Navy and I dated my first one. You ever been to Holy Loch, Scotland?
No, not Holy Loch. No.
Yeah, we were in Holy Loch over there. It rained sideways for those who don't know. Literally, it rained sideways.
Well, you are on the side of the planet, other side. So, all right.
And it's high the north as well, so everything's nearer the sky.
It was flat.
I do have one final question for you. Are you a bigger Star Wars fan or a Mickey Mouse fan?
You see, that's a tough one. So on my bottle here is Star Wars with Mickey Mouse. Like you just can put the two together.
Right? Them. Wow.
What an answer.
Very nice.
That. Yeah.
I can appreciate that.
Gary, he's a Disney fan. That was
yeah. I got to go there the first time. 21 years of having children, and I was like, I'm going to go to Disney with my kids. And 21 years later, I was like, finally, I get to go to Disney with my kids. So I took my 21, 18, and 15-year-olds to Disney, and we all had a fantastic time.
Yeah, I'm more of a Trekkie. I'm not a Star Wars guy. Everybody's like, you got to watch The Mandalorian. You got to watch Boba Fett. I'm like,
the new one's coming out too. The Andor, I think it is the prequels to Rogue Squadron. That looks fantastic.
No, I'll pass. I love.
Now we can roll this conversation into gardening just to take it full circle, you know.
Yeah.
I'm always gonna be a Captain Kirk fan when they walk up to the bar and score chicks. You know, you don't do that in Star Wars. Captain Kirk, man. So you know,
Friend of the show.
I want to learn more about your role.
Be long. Ed's shirt's gonna come on.
Yeah, there you go. Woo, girls, it going wild. I want to have you back on the show. I know you're new in the role. It's still growing. I want to see how it evolves the longer you're in it.
Yeah.
How big is your team?
It's me and two fantastic marketing experts. So I'm the technical resource and they're the marketing geniuses. And so 3 people right now, but I'm hoping to grow. I've got a plan for a thing that we might do. And if I get some sponsorship, we'll probably need a team of experts to help build it. So we'll see.
Okay.
It's like a Death Star, but not a Death Star. But yeah, I got a plan.
So, you know,
I'm sure you can work with the MVPs out there to get that technical expertise, right?
Yeah, just the MVPs. Though.
Just the MVP.
Great. If I get to do the thing I'm thinking of, it's going to be game changing for everybody. So I always think that, right? It's just ideas are penny to a dozen. Is executions that hard part. So
well, let me know when the job rec comes out. Always be looking is the thing, right? Always be looking. Yeah, this is super informative to see and I'll tell the listeners, if you guys haven't taken anything from this, look at the ability to transition when you have a base level of skills. He went from being technical to being partner enablement and incubation over to now evangelism and, you know, security, marketing, and storytelling. You can do whatever you want, right? So, you know, it goes back. You do not have to be locked in. And I think I started when you started. I got my first IT job in 1998. And there are certain milestones in your career that really launch you. Y2K launched me. I was really huge on Cisco, and I upgraded. I must have upgraded 50,000 2501 Cisco routers.
Wow.
Back then.
Brody,
Can I tell a quick Y2K story?
Yeah.
So we were celebrating New Year's, and my uncle, who is an electrician, he's like, he asked me like 5 minutes before, he's like, hey, where's your breaker panel? And like all of our family were in the basement downstairs, like 30, 40 people. And like 5 seconds after Happy New Year, he killed the breakers and you could hear a pin drop on the carpet. Like it was like, everyone was like, oh no, it happened. And then he turned it back. It was just the best troll ever. Yeah, I had to tell that story.
He was never invited back.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I was on call that night. I had to sit in the data center. I was a juniors guy. It was just me and one other guy. I didn't see him. I think he went out somewhere and took a nap. We were watching all the routers. I actually learned how to switch before I learned how to route. So I was on the Catalyst 5505.
Wow.
And then I learned how to route secondly. But I got the job because they couldn't get Duke Nukem to work on the network through the switch. and I got it to work, right? On IPX, no less, Novell.
Oh yeah.
So,
Nice.
oh yeah, back in the day, man. God, I'm dating myself. I'm old as Gary and Richard.
Did you just
turned
shove
my
everybody
video
in
off.
the DMC, or did you make a real route?
A real route.
Okay. Just checking.
There you go. So, Richard, we'll let you have the closing comments. Anything you want to say? Quick thing to look out for. What everybody should, I know you can't talk about this thing that you're trying to do, but give us a closing remark. What's exciting, or what people should say? Hey, don't sleep on this.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me to the podcast, and I look forward to coming back again. I still hold fast that identity is a big miss in so many companies. I'll give you one quick example as we go, especially when out there listening that is a consultant or is in the field. Maybe you work for a company and you've got your own identity team and they're doing their thing. So one of my last consulting roles before I got into this whole Microsoft thing was going to a company who said, we've got MFA, we've done MFA, we've got 60,000 users around the world, we've done MFA years ago, pay like $2 million a year for a product to do MFA. And then I said, well, what about Azure AD? They're like, you've got that in Office. And what is that? Like, let me explain it to you. So I wasn't trying to sell them anything. They're like, well, would you mind looking at our current identity stack and see, maybe where Azure AD fits? And I was like, sure. Long story short, they were paying for 60,000 people. They had 40,000 licenses. So 20,000 people didn't need to do MFA apparently. Of the 40,000, only 12,000 were deployed to anybody. Of the 12,000, 500 were used for VPN, and the rest used for email in the web browser, right? And so the mobile phone email was done by another system, Mobile Iron, and you had to use their email client, which is fun. So they had mobile sorted by one product, millions of dollars spent on another product for web mail. And I was like, so what about Outlook on a desktop or a laptop getting into email? And they're like, yeah, that's not covered by MFA, is it? I was like, well, if I was an attacker, that's pretty what I'd do is just log in with user ID and password, download the entire mailbox, I'm done. So they're like, all right, we're gonna have to fix that. I was like, so why don't you not pay the $2 million a year for that product? Use Azure AD that you're already paying for and has all the features you need, and spend the $2 million on my consulting fees to help you print it all. It'd be like $100,000 consulting, right? So they could still save 1.9 million. I could still make some money out of it in consulting, and they would be more secure. So just not assuming that somebody who's been doing identity for a long time knows what they're doing, and maybe just ask a few questions. Like that's been my career, has just been like, what if, how does that work? And are you sure that works like that? And that's it. You just ask a few little questions like that, and then just draw a diagram. Is what I do. Draw the diagram. Go. So this bit does that. That does that. And that. Oh, that doesn't do that. Oh, let's talk about that then. And that's it. You just need to uncover that one bit where they go, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that works. Gary knows. Go ask Gary.
So two things. When you heard me ask a question, talk about how to draw from what you do to the customer. That was, you just did it. I saw you do a presentation, so I copped that. I
need a whiteboard on the back here.
Yeah, you did that. The second thing is, without even knowing what the product was and who the customer was, I'm going to make a guess of what the product was costing $2 million. Centrify.
No, one of the more popular ones. It was actually going for it. You can guess.
Go ahead, bro.
No, I was more. Sorry, I was just making a gesture. RSA.
Yeah, no, it was Duo, but. It's thicker for them, and it's not a bad product, right? There's nothing wrong with the product, but they had a Cisco agreement, and Cisco wouldn't allow them to roll the Duo agreement into the Cisco one to save money, so they were paying full whack price for it. And like I said, 60,000 people, 40,000 licenses, and only deploying 12,000. Like you could save 1.5 million per year just by right sizing how many licenses you need. That's not hard.
Well, I play with Duo. There's no auditing about usage versus that. So to the person that's selling it, and like, oh yeah, you need all of them. You need every 60,000. Why do I need 60,000 licenses? I only have 30,000 employees. You just do.
You just do.
Just do. So, Gary is a guest. Gary, you get to have parting comments also. So, anything you want to tell us, share with us? How you liking the new gig, Gary?
I'm loving it. I mean, I thought I knew Sentinel, but there's a lot that I don't know about Sentinel, which is great. I love learning, love helping customers. It's just I think, a perfect role for me.
How long you been in role?
Just over a month.
Okay, you're done. I'm start bothering the hell out of you.
So
So that's what's going on. I give you a grace period. Now it's time to go.
We were supposed to be able to call together today. I noticed you didn't attend.
Edward, you didn't attend the call?
Hold on. Let me see what my secretary put on my
Let
call.
me just go check all my
Gary,
post-it
right,
notes
the
over
next
here.
we
Battleship.
were supposed to be.
Regards to
Oh,
Where's that pink slip?
Yeah, no doubt. Do you print off your
I-
Outlook calendar every day?
yeah, I do.
Oh my God.
old school.
wow.
I get so tired of looking at screens, man. I'm like, let me just put it on a piece of paper.
Don't give up on
man,
these printers.
Yeah,
Gary, I'm sorry. Was I supposed to be on the call?
You were invited to the call.
Did you
Oh, that's-
decline by just marking an X through the paper, or did you?
I'm
that's-
invited to every call there is. I just never
Yeah.
show up.
That's different. If you read my teams, do not put stuff on my calendar. Assume if I don't accept, I'm not coming.
I love it. Yeah, you're.
But I think I know what call you're talking about. You were good though, right? Everything.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I know the one you're talking about. But I don't cover them anymore.
Oh,
Wow. Now we know why Gary showed up.
Yeah.
I stopped covering them. I stopped covering them a while ago. But I know who was on that call, so I need to get off that thread, off that invite.
but in regards to Richard's comment about you never know the position or anything, and actually Rod was talking about this on LinkedIn the other day. I think I'm in my 5th or 6th iteration of different jobs in my career. So just because I started as a developer doesn't mean that's where I'm going to end up, although I still develop quite a bit.
Hearing your stories as someone who's had a major technical background and at one point will probably evolve, it's exciting, right? Especially being an organization with that many opportunities.
I get it,
don't,
man.
I'll go to the dark side of marketing, but you never know.
I'm started off as an assassin. I may go into the priesthood. You never know.
I worked in marketing. I worked in marketing for 20 years. And now
I never knew Rod before coming to Microsoft, and then when I went back and do his research, like, dude, I've known this dude forever. I've seen him all over these places, just never knew. He looks different now, but that's the same dude, right? And
look younger.
but hey, thank you. This is super informative. I want you to go ahead and get deep into the role, and we want to have you come back on and say, guess what I learned, or guess what I'm doing, and do that. Gary, we're going to get you back on too. We like to have a 60-day recap of what your first 60 days like at MSFT.
Sounds great.
And what's going on. We're going to have 2 of your comrades / peers on the pod who are going to be
Kara
Cole and Kim Griffin.
Not necessarily my peers; those are my bosses.
Oh, okay. Hope you're not
great,
listening.
Great people.
We're all peers. We are all peers.
All peers. Yeah, they're coming on, and they were going to do separate shows, and then they said, hey, let's do them together, right? So this was a hard scheduling. Apologize, Richard, for all the craziness of getting you scheduled. We do it at people's leisure to come on board. They're doing us a favor, but I forgot August. Everybody's on vacation.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
It's
so
a nice
people are
quiet time. Right.
So thank you for coming on last minute. We had someone, they canceled out on us. You filled it up. We put them at the bottom. We'll get you back. I knew we had you scheduled for later on, but you really accommodated us by coming on today. I really appreciate that. Right, last minute. Plus, I know you're getting ready to go on vacation, right?
I got other family things to do.
Yeah, I think you so too. Well, to our listeners, this has been another episode of the Microsoft Security Insights podcast. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for supporting. Thanks for those who have the patience as we come on to the new platform. It is so smooth, like Gary Coleman's face. Smooth like Gary Coleman's face. There you go. In my head. Actually, I got a little fuzz. What is freaking me out?
Goodbye.
Is that, what is freaking me out is that Rod Trent has hair.
Who knew?
Thank you, everyone.
Who knew, right?
Who knew?
Till next
It's like,
week.
it's like Shatner. I've got a wig.
Is he still alive?
Yeah, he's about him and Sulu. They're the only ones left.
He
Did
went
he go
into
to space?
He did
What?
go to space. I'm not sure who came back, but he went to space.
That's the last thing I remember. I never heard that he came back. Okay. Who knows? I may be dead and I know it. Everybody, This show
That's
just going
crazy.
off the rails once again. Next week.
All right.
Take
All
care.
right.
Oh, by the way, Frank, we need to get like an ending audio thing for our podcast.